shall we begin?
Let the games begin.
All right.
A new age has begun. An age of freedom.
Are you not entertained? Are you not entertained?
Get to the chopper!
This is going to be quite a ride.
Hello, everybody, and welcome back to the Movie Pit Podcast. I am your host, Christian. Thank you very much for joining me on the podcast this week. It is once again a podcast recording from work. If you listened last week, I will be recording the podcast at least for the next few weeks from work. So any background noise that you hear that makes it through the editing phase, I apologize. Also, I'm very close to my microphone, which is the microphone from my phone, which is where I'm recording this podcast right now. So bear with me on any mic issues. Although from last week it didn't sound too bad, but then again, I don't know, how you guys listen to your podcast. Maybe it sounds, worse through headphones. But that being said, I'm going to do the podcast because I don't want to leave you guys without a podcast again. So we're going to talk about some of the stuff that came out this week, all the big movie news items that came out this week. And we have quite a few big movie news items. We also have quite a bit trailers that came out this week as well. So we're going to talk about the first one. And that first, before we get to all that, we're going to talk about one particular movie news item that came out after the podcast came out last week. And that is the new Robert Eggers movie, titled The Northman, finally has a release date. Robert Eggers, by the way, the director of The Witch and The Lighthouse. So you pretty much already know what you're getting yourself into going into this movie. But Robert Eggers, his new movie, The Northman, will open on April 8th of next year, 2022. The film stars Alexander Skarsgård, Nicole Kidman, Anya Taylor-Joy, Kate Dickie, Ralph Ensign. He was the father in The Witch. I always mispronounce his last name. Ethan Hawke, William Dafoe, and Bjork. Yes, that Bjork. The film is described as a, quote, epic revenge thriller that explores how far a Viking prince will go to seek justice for his murdered father. And I believe that Alexander Skarsgård is that Viking prince. So it should be interesting to see how the rest of the cast plays out. I think Bjork was supposedly, from what I remember, Bjork was supposed to play like a witch or something. I think that was announced a few months ago when her casting was announced that she was going to play like a witch. So it should be interesting to see nonetheless. There's a lot of reunions for this movie. Obviously the big ones are Eggers, Taylor-Joy, Dickie, and Ensign. They were all part of The Witch. They were basically play the family in there. Eggers and Dafoe, of course, are reuniting from The Lighthouse, and Skarsgård and Kidman are reunited from their well-talked-about HBO series Big Little Lies. Again, speaking of Bjork, this is also the first film performance for the singer since Dancer in the Dark, all the way back in 2000. So there you go. So again, The Northman will come out on April 8th of next year. That's definitely something we're looking forward toward. So we'll talk about that more in the future. All right, so let's go move on and talk about our trailers. We have three big trailers that came out this week. Yes, we have three big trailers that came out this week that I'm going to talk about. The first one is Universal Pictures' adaptation of Dear Evan Hansen. They released their first trailer, a long trailer. It's over 3 minutes long. That is, of course, based off the award-winning Broadway musical, which Ben Platt is reprising his role from the musical to the TV version, to the movie version. It actually won him a Tony Award for Best Actor in a Musical, which is pretty cool. So Platt plays the high school senior, Evan Hansen, with severe social anxiety and gets caught in a lie when a classmate of his dies by suicide, which in turn brings Evan closer to the departed's family while also allowing him to grow outside of his own shell. That is from the official synopsis. I didn't know anything about Dear Evan Hansen. I had heard what it was, but I never went after it or pursued it because it obviously was a Broadway play. I think they did a couple of shows here in Chicago, but I just never got around to going. But so I kind of knew what it was, and then obviously now seeing the trailer, I know there was a lot of people that were surprised about that's what the movie's about, because no one knew what the movie was about. They probably were like me, they heard about it, maybe they knew a little bit about what it was, and then they see the trailer, and it's the trailer gives you a very good indication of what the movie's about, obviously, besides the synopsis. So that's pretty cool. Benji Pasek and Justin Paul, they wrote the music for La La Land, actually winning an Oscar for City of Stars. They wrote also some songs for The Greatest Showman, so they're coming in for the movie to write that. I can't remember I want to say that I think they probably did the Broadway version too. I could be wrong about that. I know all the Broadway people are like, that's not them, and I apologize if that's not the case. I don't know why I remember like reading something like that. Whatever. The movie is also directed by Steven Chbosky. I hope I'm pronouncing that last name right. He directed Wonder and The Perks of Being a Wallflower, which I know are two movies that have a lot of fans. It co-stars Amy Adams, who is playing the mother of a student who passes away. Caitlin Dever from Booksmart, she plays the sister. You also have Julianne Moore, who's playing Evan's mother in the movie. Amandla Steinberg is also in there. She's playing one of the kids at school. One of the students who kind of realizes that maybe Evan Hansen wasn't really friends with the kid. So the story, for those who don't know, I keep assuming that you probably know what it is, and you probably don't. But like the synopsis that I read earlier, Evan Hansen writes a letter to himself because it was an assignment from his therapist. The student who passes away, for whatever reason, I can't remember his name now, Connor, I think it's Connor. Connor grabs the letter and runs away. And, when he obviously, when he commits suicide and he passes away, they find the letter on him. So they assume that Evan was, this best friend that no one knew Connor had. And it's kind of just like this buildup of a lie and lie. So it's a very touching story. It's coming out on September 24th. There's a good chance there's already like early Oscar buzz for it. People are starting early Oscar buzz for it. So it should be interesting to see how that, especially how it's played out, because Broadway people are very particular about their plays. So that should be interesting to see if that works out. But it looks good. I do admit that the trailer is really long, although again they're probably selling it on people who don't know what Dear Evan Hansen is, I'm assuming. All right, let's move on to the next trailer. Netflix released the first teaser trailer for their ambitious take and adaptation of R.L. Stine's novel series Fear Street. The trilogy of movies follows a group of teenagers who discover that their town has been haunted for generations and must find a way to stop the killings before they end up dead. Each movie will focus on a different era. Part 1 will be set in 1994, Part 2 will be set in 1978, and Part 3 will be set in 1666. The trilogy cast will include Netflix's Stranger Things stars Maya Hawke and Sadie Sink. You also have Jillian Jacobs in there as well. In there, I believe a lot of the cast in the movie are relatively unknowns or people you may have seen in other projects, but those are the kind of the big ones that I think they're selling the movie on. The ambitious adaptations will start on July 2nd with Part 1, obviously, and then in the following weeks, they will be coming out on July 9th and July 16th. Plus, while the books were targeted toward a younger generation, the movies themselves will be rated R, something which R.L. Stine himself seems to be pretty okay with. So that's pretty cool. If this doesn't suit your fancy, obviously Sony Pictures is working on other R.L. Stine stuff. He's obviously written a lot of books, so there's a lot of stuff going on there. They're working on a new Goosebumps live action adaptation for TV-wise, and HBO Max is working on a Point Horror series, another series that Stine did. I think Fear Street's pretty cool. This concept is pretty cool that they want to do it. I know when they originally announced it, I don't think when they originally announced it was going to Netflix. I think it was going to theaters, and I think they were going to still do this very ambitious plan where they were going to release Part 1, and then a few months later, I think they were going to release Part 2, and then again, a few months later, they were going to release Part 3. So all these were going to be coming out within the same year. I think that was the original plan they were going to do, which was very ambitious and very cool, and if they ended up, succeeding in that, I think it would have been really cool. But I kind of like the fact that this is now coming out on Netflix, because obviously, people are always looking for new things, and it's really easy to watch this and then, wait for the next thing to come out. It's coming out, it's not like they're spacing it out. It's coming out week after week after week, 3 weeks. So this is pretty cool. And if you want to wait and binge it all, you can, obviously. So I think this is really cool that they're going to do that. And setting it in different eras is very interesting. I like that they're going backwards, not going forwards. It's like 1994 and then 1978 and then 1666. They could have done it the other way, but they're not. They're doing it. I kind of like that too. So this is really cool. I've never read the Fear Street novels, to be honest. I read Goosebumps. I never read Fear Street. Like I think it wasn't until I was older that I realized he had another series called Fear Street, and I just never got around to reading them. But the teaser itself doesn't really show off that much. It tells you like their plan, and then it jumps to like bits of every era that they're doing and showing you little stuff here and there, which is pretty cool. But yeah, I'm looking forward to this. I really am. I really hope that it works for them, and if they continue, if they want to, obviously there's a lot of Fear Street novels out there. So if this is kind of like their phase 1, I'd be okay with seeing a phase 2 if they want to go with that. So yeah. All right, let's move on to the final trailer of the week, which was the trailer that came out at the beginning of the week, and that was Paramount Pictures finally releasing the first teaser trailer for G.I. Joe spinoff Snake Eyes. The movie is an origin story, and it looks like Henry Golding, obviously it doesn't look like he is playing Snake Eyes. He is welcomed into an ancient Japanese clan that takes him in after from the synopsis, quote, saving the life of their heir apparent. And it looks like the heir apparent is Andrew Koji's Storm Shadow. So there's that. They bring him in, and they're obviously teaching him the ways of their clan and the ninja, and obviously it looks like he's gonna eventually have to choose between them or himself, even though they've kind of treated him as family members. So this is pretty cool. The rest of the cast, you have Samara Weaving in there as Scarlet, obviously part of G.I. Joe. Ursula Corberó from Netflix's Money Heist is in there. She's playing the Baroness. Iko Uwais is also in there as Hardmaster, and a bunch of other people as well, of course. It's directed by Robert Shumensky. I think that's how you pronounce his last name. He directed Red, the one with Bruce Willis and Carl Urban and John Malkovich and not Samuel L. Jackson, Morgan Freeman. Wow, that says a lot about me. Where they play all retired, extremely dangerous people. He also directed Ripped, or R.I.P.D. So this looks pretty cool, though. It's a very brief teaser, but it's a teaser, but it works. It shows off a lot of action. It shows off the cast. I'm looking forward to this. I've been looking forward to this. And now with the teaser, it sold me. It really did. I think it looks great. I think the action looks really great. There's that opening scene where someone's riding on a bike and she jumps off and she does a kick off a semi truck that's next to her and chops off a piece of a sword or something, or a gun. I don't know, but it looks really cool. It looks pretty badass. I'm sold on it. I don't know what more to say that it has already been said throughout the week, but I'm sold on it. I really am. I think the cast is great. I love Andrew Koji in Warrior, which is where he's from. He's playing Storm Shadow, and he has that cool moment where he has, he's in all white. He's not in the Storm Shadow getup, but it looks like he's in all white, and he has the swords, and it looks like he's fighting someone in the rain. Henry Golding, he sells the part. I think everyone knows him from Crazy Rich Asians, and I think that's kind of pretty much where everyone really knows him from. And this will kind of be his first foray. I don't know why I can't say that word now. This is his first, foray into. I did it again. You know what? Fuck it. Into the action genre, really. So, but he looks the part, man. He does. He looks like he worked really hard for it. He's been talking about in interviews already how excited he is to play Snake Eyes and stuff. So, and this is an origin story. I know everyone's like, why is Storm Shadow? Why is Snake Eyes talking? It's a prequel. It's his origin story. Of course he's gonna talk. I know there's some stories where he doesn't talk at all. He was just born a mute. Or there's different versions. There's he was born a mute. There's versions where he swore an oath of not speaking because the death of his master and stuff like that. So I don't know. It looks like he's talking to this, so maybe he does take the oath later on. But we'll see. Hopefully this kind of starts off a new trilogy, a new franchise for G.I. Joe. We'll see what happens. It's interesting that also Scarlett's in here. She's the only G.I. Joe, at least from the credits, that's in. I mean, obviously besides Snake Eyes, but it doesn't look like he's actually part of G.I. Joe yet. So that should be interesting. So I'm interested. So Snake Eyes will open on July 23rd for all of you who want to watch it. All right, let's move on to the movie news items of the week. Okay, the first movie news item is that it's finally happening, guys. A long hoped for sequel to Attack the Block is happening. Joel Cornish, who wrote and directed the first movie, will return with his lead star John Boyega at that, which is of course the thing that broke him onto the scene. Plot details are under wraps at the moment, but Cornish and Boyega both released statements saying how excited they are to come back, and the reaction from fans so far has been also very positive. I am a huge fan of Attack the Block. I didn't really know anything about it when I went to go watch it. My brother had heard about it, and he said it was a British alien action comedy, and that's all he heard about it. And he heard that it was good, and I was like, okay, let's go watch it. And then we went to go watch it, and we went to go watch it kind of in a crowded theater. It was a small theater, so it was almost packed, and we all had an amazing time. And to this day, it is still one of my favorite movies, because it starts off. It kind of goes in these different directions. If you don't know anything about Attack the Block, it's basically it's set in London, and it follows a group of kids. You have to remember these are kids at some point, and these are a bunch of kids who something crash lands in kind of their area where they live. They end up taking it, and then a bunch of aliens just show up and they start chasing them. And along the way, they meet up with someone that they actually tried to mug earlier in the movie, who ends up being Emily Mortimer, the current Doctor Who, or the female Doctor Who, I should say. I lost track of who the actual current Doctor Who is. Is it still her, or is it Peter? I can't remember anymore. I have not been caught up, as you can probably imagine. But so they try to steal from her earlier in the movie, and then they meet up again, and both groups end up teaming up to fight off these aliens who are attacking the apartment complex they live in. It's very good. It's very good. If you have not watched it yet, I highly recommend you do. I'm pretty sure it's available everywhere. Probably not available to watch, but available to rent or own at the very least. I would just go ahead and buy it, because it's actually really, really good. I thoroughly enjoy that movie, and it's worth every penny, however much it costs. So I'm looking forward to this. And the fact that they're bringing back John Boyega, it's this thing that broke him out, so it would only be right that they would bring him back. And they're bringing back Joe Cornish. I think that's really, really cool. Speaking of much wanted sequels, Disney has revealed the release date for the much wanted and desired sequel to Hocus Pocus. The sequel, which will be coming out on Disney Plus, will come out next year in the fall, although no exact date was given. I think we can probably all assume, though, when they'll probably release that will probably be around Halloween time. The sequel, which was rumored at first to be a reboot, will not be that, or maybe it will be like a soft reboot, but it won't be a reboot overall, because Bette Midler, Kathy Najimy, I think that's how you pronounce her last name. I always mispronounce her last name, and I really do like her as an actress. And Sarah Jessica Parker will all return to play the Sanderson sisters, and it looks like the movie will follow 3 young women who accidentally bring back the sisters to modern-day Salem and must find a way to stop them before they feast on the souls of children and wreak havoc on the world, which is what every witch tries to do when they come back. The sequel will start production this fall with a new director in Anne Fletcher, who has directed movies like 27 Dresses and The Proposal. She's been doing a lot of TV stuff recently, because those are old movies. She takes over from Adam Shankman, who was going to originally direct the movie, but had to back out because he went on to direct Disenchanted, the sequel to Enchanted. So he's doing fine, but the movie itself is going to get made. I remember liking Hocus Pocus. Admittedly, I have not seen it all the way through in some time, which is, I know, very hard, because Freeform shows it almost every other weekend and shows it all day on Halloween, on Halloween, for their 31 days of Halloween. I have not seen the whole movie in quite some time, all the way through, but I remember liking it as a kid. I do. I remember liking it when I was younger, and I know a lot of people want the sequel. I think I'm just very on, just keeping it at arm's length, because again, I haven't watched the first one in quite some time, all the way through, so I have to go back and watch it. But I do remember liking it, and I think the fact that they're bringing back the 3, Midler, Najimy, and Jessica Parker back as the Sanderson sisters is awesome. I think that's a really great move. I think the fact that they're not going to go with the full reboot like they originally were going to, I think is a good move, because I know a lot of people were upset that they were going to reboot the movie, and so I'm glad they're not doing that, because it would have just pissed a lot of people off. But I'm excited for it, I guess. I'm going to watch it, obviously. So, all right, moving on to more sequel news. The ever-growing cast of Knives Out 2 continues this week, as Leslie Odom Jr. and Kate Hudson join the impressive cast. The two will now join the returning Daniel Craig, along with new cast members Dave Bautista, Janelle Monáe, Catherine Hahn, and Edward Norton. Rian Johnson will return to co-write and direct the sequel, although we don't know what the movie will be about, nor anyone who they're playing, besides Craig, of course, because Craig is coming back, obviously, as Detective Benoit Blanc. The filming will begin this summer in Greece, and the sequel will come out on Netflix, along with the already announced third movie, which will also come out on Netflix. Odom is, of course, coming off his Oscar nominations, I should say, for One Night in Miami, and will be seen in the Sopranos prequel, The Many Saints of Newark, which comes out later this year. Hudson, on the other hand, was last seen in the heavily criticized film debut of singer Sia for their movie Music. Not the best way to come back after not doing a few movies after a while, just saying. So hopefully Knives Out 2 will put her back on the right course, but there's that. So not really too much to say about here. I think it's, I haven't seen enough of as Leslie Odom Jr. as an actor, besides Hamilton and One Night in Miami, and I saw him in something else. I just can't remember what it was, but I haven't seen enough of him to really kind of gauge anything as him as an actor. Hudson, again, we haven't seen a lot of her recently, so I don't know about that, but the rest of the cast is fantastic. Obviously, Craig did a really good job as the character in the first one. Batista, I'm a huge fan of as a wrestler and as an actor. He's grown so much as an actor. Monet is great, with when she's given great material to go off of. Han is always reliable, and Norton obviously always reliable as well. So it'd be really cool to see all of them kind of play off each other. Again, we don't know what the movie's about, so we don't know how they'll interact or what their chemistry will be like, but this is pretty cool. All right, moving on. Deadline reports that Game of Thrones and Fast and Furious star Natalie Emmanuel and Garrett Hudlin from Tron Legacy and Triple Frontier, and recently The United States of Billie Holiday, have joined the new horror film The Bride, directed by Jessica M. Thompson, who is doing revisions to the script that was done originally by Blair Butler, who has done Polaroid, and she was originally a comic book writer, and she also worked for G4 for a while in the early days. The Bride itself is a Dracula-inspired film that tells of a young woman courted and swept off her feet, only to find out that a gothic conspiracy is now afoot. Yes, that is from the synopsis. The film is said to be a contemporary horror movie that has the studio executives over at I didn't put the studio where it was from. Oh, that's weird. But wherever it's going from, it has the studio executives very excited, more than ever, hoping for a franchise. So production is expected to begin at the end of the summer. Okay, going from a Dracula-inspired story to a Frankenstein-style story, Mark Ruffalo has joined Yorgos Lanthimos' next film, Poor Things, which already has Emma Stone set to star. Lanthimos is the director of The Lobster, The Killing of a Sacred Deer, and lastly, The Favorite, which also starred Emma Stone, so it's a nice little reunion for all of them. The film is based on a book by Scottish author Alasdair Gray, I think I'm pronouncing that first name right, and has been described as a, quote, many quotes here, a, quote, hilarious political allegory, a send-up for Victorian literature, and a thought-provoking duel between the desires of men and the independence of women. Like I mentioned, the movie is a reimagining of Frankenstein, in which Stone plays a character named Bella Baxter, who was brought back to life with the brain of an infant by a surgeon who finds her dead. And that's just the tip of the craziness of this story, because I read the full synopsis, and it sounds so batshit crazy. But I'm just gonna wait to see. I'm just not gonna tell you guys, because I think the less you know about it, the better. Or let's see how much they keep of that from the novel, from the synopsis that I read to the movie. But it does sound right up Lanthimos' wheelhouse if you've seen The Lobster and you've seen The Favorite and stuff like that. Poor Things will start production later this year and is expected to come out later next year, maybe even early 23, probably around Oscar season. So there's that. Moving on, the already announced sequel to Pet Sematary is finally moving forward, as it's hired a director in Lindsay Beer. Beer is making her directorial debut after a very successful and very busy career as a screenwriter so far. Reportedly, Beer wanted to direct for a while and saw this as a perfect opportunity to do it. Plot details are unknown at the moment, but we can assume that Pet Sematary, which involves the ancient burial ground that raises the dead back to life, will play a factor. Beer, by the way, is one of the most sought out after female screenwriters in Hollywood at the moment. She's worked on movies like Chaos Walking, Transformers: The Last Night. She was in the writer's room for Godzilla vs. Kong and is attached to write a live-action adaptation of Bambi. a Mask movie, Mobile Armored Strike Command movie. That's what Mask stands for. It's an old 80s cartoon, and is writing the adaptation of Patrick Rufus's novel, The King Killer Chronicle. So she's very high up there. She's working in a lot of writers' rooms over the years, and everyone, from what I've seen, has said a lot of good things about her. So we probably have to keep an eye out on Lindsay Beers' name. So there you go. And as for Pet Sematary, the second one, I didn't mind the first one. It wasn't bad. I didn't really know what more to say, because I know the first one was okay too. I like the original one. Was also okay. So I don't know. Well, we'll see what they do with this. Speaking of directors, Warner Brothers has hired Bad Boys for Life directors. I want to mispronounce her name, so I apologize. Aldi El Arbi and Bilal Fala, I think that's how you pronounce their names. I apologize. To direct the long-gesturing Batgirl movie, which will, of course, follow the adventures of Barbara Gordon, aka the daughter of Commissioner Gordon, who, of course, takes up the mantle of Batgirl. The Hollywood Reporter broke the news, also adding that the movie will be an HBO Max movie, so will not go to theaters like originally thought. Christina Hodson, who wrote Bumblebee and Birds of Prey, wrote the script for the movie, although no word yet on who will play Batgirl herself. We have seen the character, of course, on the big screen before, played by Alicia Silverstone, although she was Alfred's niece and not Gordon's daughter. Of course, like I mentioned, in Batman and Robin. And for a while, Joss Whedon was attached to write and direct the Batgirl movie back in 2017. He left the project in 2018 because he, quote, couldn't come up with the right story. And Joss Whedon, as we have found out, is a walking pile of trash, which is a shame to say because he, of course, did a lot of cool things for the nerd community, but glad he's not a part of it anymore. Fala and Al Abdi do have a history of female superheroes. Batgirl will not be their first one. They were the co-showrunners for the Marvel series Miss Marvel, which is, I think they already finished filming that. So they directed the premiere episodes and the finale episode. So they have a big history there. I'm looking forward to seeing what they do with Batgirl. Batgirl's been in the works for a while, and it'll be nice to finally see that. The fact that it's just an HBO Max movie is kind of it's kind of a bummer. I was gonna say disheartening, but it's not really disheartening. It's kind of a bummer. But and I know a lot of people probably wanted to see a female director. Obviously, what Kathy Ann did with Birds of Prey. I was looking at it, I was like, I just mentioned it. For Birds of Prey, I think, people were hoping that it would be a female director. But, I mean, I liked what they did with Bad Boys for Life. I know they directed some, TV stuff. I think Snowfall was the thing that they directed for a while, especially early on. It's a FX show. But I'm... they have a director. I liked what they did. Again, like I mentioned, I liked what they did with Bad Boys for Life. I know a lot of people wanted a female director. I think it would have been cool if they had a female director directing Batgirl, but, at least it's getting made to that extent, I guess. All right, moving on. We'll keep on with the director train. Travis Knight, the director of Kubo and the True Strings and the aforementioned Bumblebee, has signed on to direct the vampire movie Uprising for Netflix. It's based off a book titled The People's History of the Vampire Uprising by Raymond Villarreal. The action thriller takes place in the midst of a global pandemic, sound familiar, as a virus, that sounds real familiar, starts turning people into vampires. That hasn't happened yet. The story finds CIA agent Lauren Webb racing against time to uncover the truth behind a growing uprising that threatens to wipe out humanity. Jeremy Slater, who has written a lot of things, he's wrote the Fantastic Four movie. He was one of the writers on the Fantastic Four movie, which is unfortunate. He was also one of the writers of the Netflix adaptation of Death Note, but he's mainly done a lot of TV stuff like The Exorcist TV series, The Umbrella Academy, and the upcoming Marvel series Moon Knight. He wrote the latest draft of the script. This one's pretty cool. I like Travis Knight. I really loved Kubo and the Two Strings. I think that's my favorite Lenko movie, which I know is blasphemous for some people because everyone will probably say Coraline. But I think Kubo and the Two Strings is my favorite one. I really liked what he did with Bumblebee, and that was his first attempt at live action. So him coming in and doing this, I think it's pretty cool. And he's been trying to find other live action stuff to direct. I think this is the first one that he's kind of found. So I think this is really, really cool. And it sounds pretty cool. Vampire Uprising. deadly virus turning people into vampires. Usually it's like turning people into zombies, and now it's turning into vampires. And Netflix is kind of on a vampire kick. They have a lot of vampire series on there. They have another vampire movie that's shooting right now with Jamie Foxx. So it's kind of interesting that Netflix is going the vampire route, which is pretty cool. All right, moving on. Warner Brothers is remaking speaking of vampires, the erotic vampire film The Hunger, which was originally directed by Tony Scott, the late, great Tony Scott, and that was the movie that pretty much kind of kickstarted his career. The movie was also led by David Bowie and Susan Sarandon. The remake will be written by Jessica, I'm going to mispronounce her last name, Schwarzer. I don't know if that's how you say her last name. She wrote A Simple Favor, which is that Blake Lively movie that came out with Anna Kendrick. She's also written for TV series like American Horror Story and Hulu's upcoming 9 Perfect Strangers, which I think is already out or it's coming out. I can't remember. But she's writing that, and they are in talks with director Angela Robinson, who directed Debs, episodes of The L Word, the TV series, and somewhat recently, movie's a few years old, the movie Professor Marston and the Wonder Woman, which is, of course, the biopic of the guy who wrote Wonder Woman. And wouldn't you know it, she's a good old Chicago gal. So this is pretty cool. So the movie itself, The Hunger, if you've never heard about it or anything like that, the movie itself was based off a novel by Whitley Schreiber. I think it was called the same thing. I think it was called The Hunger. And it starred Catherine Deneuve as, I think that's how you pronounce her name, as a centuries-old vampire named Miriam, who promises eternal life to her lovers through injections of her blood. When her lover, John, played by David Bowie, begins to age rapidly, she seeks the help of a doctor named Sarah, played by Susan Sarandon, to find a cure. However, the three begin a dangerous love triangle, and in the process, there's full of betrayals, suspense, and lots and lots of sex, because like I mentioned, it's an erotic vampire thriller. This isn't the first time that Warner Bros. Has actually tried to remake The Hunger. I totally forgot about this. The studio announced they were doing it way back in 2009, and it kind of went dormant until last year when the news started picking up again, and names like Anya Taylor-Joy and Jennifer Lawrence were being looked at to star in the movie. And David Bowie's own son, Duncan Jones, who has directed Moon, Source Code, Warcraft, and the Netflix film Mute, he was on the short list of directors to direct this movie, which would have been, really cool, because obviously his father was in the original one. So now, besides Jones, there is no word on if Lawrence or Taylor-Joy will be involved. Obviously, Duncan Jones is not going to direct it because they have a director. So, and it would be really cool to see how Robinson makes it her own. I don't remember watching The Hunger. I know what it was. I knew that David Bowie and Susan Sarandon were in this weird vampire movie, but I don't think I ever watched it, or maybe I did and I just blocked it out of my memory. I don't remember, but yeah, there is that. And Robinson herself does have a history with vampires and sexiness, I guess, if you want to put it that way. She was a writer and executive producer and director on True Blood. So the movie's in pretty much good hands. She knows this kind of world of sexy vampires and erotica and all that. So I don't know what to say about this. I mean, I think this is, the fact that Warner Bros. Has been working on this for a while and it kind of went dormant, and now they have, a new director in tow, potentially. She's still in final talks, but it will be extremely interesting to see who they cast in the movie, because you had Susan Sarandon back then. Obviously, she was a big actress. You had David Bowie, of all people, as your male lead, which is very interesting. So it will be interesting to see kind of I'm more interested in seeing who they cast in the movie, for more than the fact that it's getting remade. All right, let's move on. This is a pretty big one. This is kind of our big movie news item of the week, at least at the time of this recording. Amazon is reportedly weeks into negotiations on a deal to acquire MGM for $9 billion. That is billion. Sources tell Variety that Amazon's interest in acquiring the studio has taken a new tenure beyond the usual rumor mill. That's their words. The deal, because obviously I don't speak like that. The deal is said to be orchestrated by Mike Hobson, who is the senior VP of Amazon Studios and Prime Video, and he's been talking and dealing directly with MGM board chairman Kevin Yorick, which is obviously who you want to be dealing with. MGM has been looking for a buyer since December, and Amazon is at least the first public company to try and buy MGM, at least from what I can remember. I remember there being a story about MGM trying to sell their stuff, but I can't remember if there was another studio attached. But this is kind of the first time that publicly it's been announced that someone is trying to buy MGM, especially for $9 billion, which MGM is fully willing to pay. There are other studios and companies that would like to buy MGM, but they're willing to pay, at least from the report, $5 billion, not $9 million. MGM is and has this huge and massive library of movies and TV shows, so whoever ends up buying this legendary and famed studio is getting a lot. They are getting a massive amount of things and TV shows and stuff like that. So this is a pretty big deal. And if Amazon can pull this off, which if they're willing to pay the $9 billion for this, I think we might be seeing Amazon Video, a Prime Video MGM movie. And this includes all their stuff, that's coming out as well. This includes the James Bond series. And the James Bond series is already on Amazon. I think most of the movies are already on there on Prime Video. But this could include future James Bond movies. We can be seeing a Prime Video logo in front of a James Bond movie in the future if this deal goes through. Assuming that this also includes, future theater releases and not just, straight to VOD releases and stuff like that. So that's pretty massive. That's pretty, so we'll keep an eye on that for sure. And finally, the last movie news item of the week, and this is a big one. This is probably a big win for some of the people attached to this project. Denis Villeneuve's highly anticipated adaptation of Dune will play exclusively in theaters. This is after the director himself, Villeneuve, and even stars like Dave Bautista saying the movie should be played in theaters rather than getting a hybrid or day and date release method that Warner Brothers has been doing since the beginning of the year on all their other movies. Deadline reports the film will premiere at the Venice Film Festival in September ahead of its release on October 1st. This is, of course, a different release method from, like I mentioned, the other Warner Brothers movies coming out this year, where they've been getting, again, day and date release is kind of the term they called it, where they're getting released in theaters and on HBO Max in the same day. When they're on HBO Max, they get the 30-day release and they leave. Warner Brothers did make a deal with Regal Cinemas earlier this year. We talked about that deal, about their movies next year getting a 45-day theater window, which means that they will play exclusively, not exclusively, but at least at Regal Cinemas, they will play for 45 days before they jump on to HBO Max. So that's a pretty obviously big deal, and that's, became kind of commonplace a lot with, Paramount and doing their movies on Paramount Plus. This will be the only Warner Brothers movie this year to open in theaters that will not be on the streaming platform the same day. This comes also at the heels of AT&T making a deal through Warner Media to merge with Discovery, which is, they're still kind of, working that out as well, which is pretty massive as well. One of the reasons this deal also probably happened is because Dune, which is financed by Legendary Pictures or Entertainment, whichever one, I think it's Legendary Pictures. They financed 75% of the budget. This is basically a Legendary Pictures movie that is being released by Warner Brothers, and the executives over at Legendary are still peeved at Warner Brothers that they made the move. That move about the releases going to theaters and HBO Max on the same day without telling anybody. So if you remember when that story broke out, that Warner Bros. Was going to release their entire 2021 slate in theaters and HBO Max on the same day, there was a lot of people pissed off. And one of those people were the executives at Legendary, because Warner Brothers made this move without telling anybody. And it pissed a lot of people off. And it pissed Legendary off. It pissed Denis Villeneuve off. It pissed Dave Bautista off, because they were very passionate about Dune being seen in a movie theater. That is the experience that they want fans to watch the movie in. And we had the discussion about whether or not this was a good idea, whether or not fans would clamor at this, whether or not they would take this opportunity to be like, well, if I don't have to go to a movie theater and watch a movie, I can just watch it at home, and I can watch it for free. Essentially, once you pay the HBO Max subscription fee, I can watch it for free for 30 days and not worry about it. Whereas if I go to a movie, I have to pay, every time I want to go watch it. So this is cool. And I know that Legendary and Denis Villeneuve have been trying to convince Warner Brothers for a while to only play the movie in theaters, and it looks like it finally worked. So this is a big move for Legendary, and again, I don't blame Legendary for being upset. They were also upset about Godzilla vs. Kong, but they managed to work out some deal with that, and I guess now they've been working on a deal with Dune. Obviously, Godzilla vs. Kong doing very successful at the box office, because it made a massive amount of money at the box office for a pandemic anyway. So that was pretty cool. And I'm sure Legendary was happy about that, but I'm sure they were still peeved off about that as well. But this is interesting. Dune will now join, another list of movies that will only be coming out in theaters. We talked about Snake Eyes earlier. In the trailer, it says only in theaters. Shang-Chi is only coming out in theaters. Talked about that last week. So there's a lot of movies that are only coming out in theaters, and Dune is now one of those movies. It's just interesting that Dune is also a Warner Brothers movie, and it's not going to follow the same method as all their other releases. So I mean, obviously this movie coming out in October, everything going on right now, more people getting vaccinated, and theaters wanting to open up at full capacity. Recently this week, there was that whole thing about a bunch of filmmakers and producers and stars doing this, presentation for people for like columnists and people in websites and journalists to come and see a presentation about, coming back to theaters. And it's really weird that, they're really pushing this idea of going back to a movie theater, even though there's still a pandemic going on. So I don't know about this movie. Obviously, I think by October, hopefully we're better. And, I don't think this thing is going to go away right away or anytime soon. Maybe not even probably this year. But will it be better if, later down the line in October, where we can probably all go get stuffed in a movie theater, or somewhat, stuffed movie theater and watch Dune? I'll be down for that. But only if I know that by then it get a little better. I'm still on the fence about that. I mean, I've been renting out movie theaters with my family for, this year. Not every week, because that's just crazy. But for a lot of the big movies, we rented out a theater for Godzilla vs. Kong and for Mortal Kombat. We recently went to go watch Wrath of Man in a rented out theater. So, if we got to do that for Dune, we'll do that for Dune. But, I think hopefully we don't need to do that by October. Hopefully. That's, holding on hope. But I'm not holding up too much hope. Let's put it that way. So there's one last movie news item that dropped right as I was editing the podcast and right before I was about to end it. The Highlander reboot may have found its lead in Superman himself, Henry Cavill. The reboot and reimagining of the original 1986 movie, which will be directed by John Wick franchise director Chad Stahelski, has in talks with Cavill. Deadline. That's what came out from Deadline, that Cavill is in talks for one of the lead roles. It's unknown if the movie will be a reboot of the original or a reimagining, so we don't know if Cavill will be playing the role that was originally played by Christopher Lambert, or if he will play a brand new character, or even a villain or mentor. The wording on Deadline's report says one of the lead roles. Although, really, for a franchise like a potential franchise like this, or even a reboot like this, or reimagining or remake or whatever, whatever they're going to do with it, you always kind of want to find your hero before you find your villain. So, but, just putting it out there, just putting it out there. Like I mentioned, the original had Christopher Lambert as the main character. Clancy Brown played the villain. Sean Connery was also in there, which is always one of the weirdest castings there is, but he was there. The original also got 3 sequels and a couple live-action TV series, one of which was very popular and had Adrian Paul in it. That's the one that I remember the most. The Highlander reboot itself has been kicking around Hollywood for a while. At one point, Justin Lin, the director of the Fast and the Furious franchise from Tokyo Drift to Fast and Furious 6. He's also coming back to direct Fast 9 and potentially Fast 10. He was eyed to direct for a while. Ryan Reynolds was at one point eyed for the lead role. I know there was a couple other people too. I just can't remember. The Deadline report mentions those two, so that's why I pinned those 2 out. But now we wait for an official word on if Cavill's casting is official, and we'll see who else they'll bring along. Obviously now with Cavill on board, it'll be interesting to see who they pair up with him. Cavill at the moment is filming season 2 of The Witcher for Netflix and will reprise his role as Sherlock Holmes in Netflix's sequel to Enola Holmes, which we talked about last week. So this is pretty cool. I like Henry Cavill. I know that he can handle himself with a sword, apparently, from what I read about in The Witcher. So that'd be really cool to see him do that. I'm looking forward to this. I have been looking forward to this. So here's to them if they can nail that out of the park. All right, that is it. That is all the movie news items I have for you guys, at least at the time of this recording. Obviously, if anything big drops, we'll talk about that next week, or I'll drop it in the Twitter page. But yeah, thank you guys so much for listening to the podcast this week, no matter where you're listening. If you're listening to this on YouTube, on Spotify, on Stitcher, on, what's the other one? YouTube, Apple Podcast, Stitcher, Spotify. I don't know where my own podcast is. It's an interesting week, obviously. But thank you guys so much for listening. I really much appreciate it. Thank you guys so much for all that. And no matter where you are, subscribe, follow, like, rate. Please rate the podcast wherever you are, especially on Apple Podcasts, because it helps out the podcast in the long run. And I really would appreciate that. And I will see you guys next week. Please bear with me again for the next few weeks with the background noise, any potential audio issues that come up, and stuff like that. I very much appreciate it, even, especially also editing wise, because again, I'm just doing all of this at work. I'm doing some stuff at home, but I'm doing a lot of this at work, and this is how you know I'm passionate, guys. This is how you know I care about the podcast. So yeah, all right, that's it. I'm done. Thank you guys. Enjoy your weekend. Please be safe, and as always, go watch some movies.
Whoop whoop! Yeah! Give it up! Movies!